Good morning, Miami. How are we? Are we good? We awake? We're ready? Good. Okay, I'm going to try a little experiment, first of all. And by the way, Emmett, thank you very much for the introduction. The use of the word funny, there was no pressure, obviously, clearly. But I'd like everybody to stand up, okay? Stand up, 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 stand up. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a series of little questions, first of all, before I go into the introduction of the topic of today. And I want you to kind of keep standing if the following are true. So stand up if you believe IT is operationally stable in your company. The reputation of IT is that it's stable. Keep standing if that's the case. Oh, a few more standing. Oh, right. Okay. We're losing people already. Okay. Second question. Let's see if the reputation of IT in your organization is known for delivering the right projects to the company. Stay standing if that's the case. The right projects. Okay, we're losing more. Okay, keep with me. Anybody who works for iRise, I would keep standing right now, by the way. Okay, keep standing if you think that IT is financially well managed. The governance in IT through that process is done well. Okay, it's good. Now let's see if your reputation in IT is really about giving the customers that you work with, the business users, agility, competitive distinction. It's changing the way that they do their jobs. You can see there's people sitting down now. Okay. This continuum goes all the way through to, you can sit down now. It goes all the way through to, do your business stakeholders feel that they're getting value? Is it transforming the way they get their products or services to market? Is it transforming the way that their end customers see this company and the choices that they make about your company based on technology? And lastly, the question I was going to ask, because everybody sat down, is would you think your board would understand any of this? Okay? Now, the chances are probably not. So let's move this on, and thank you for standing up for that. So let me tell you a little bit about me. So Emmett introduced me. I've known Emmett for 5 years. We met on a crazy day in New York 5 years ago. I literally landed I was in Heidrick & Struggles at the time. Just to put some context around, Heidrick & Struggles is the world's biggest executive search firm. They placed Eric Schmidt at Google. They're currently doing Steve Ballmer's replacement at Microsoft. So they're working at a nice kind of space, right at the top of the industry. And it was a typical kind of like, we're doing a road trip, meet 20 customers. And at the end of this road trip, my boss says, okay, so you can get changed, and we've got this dinner with this guy. I don't even remember his name, Bryan. I was like, oh, really? Okay. Don't remember his name? Okay, right, fine. And this time it was about 1:30 on my body clock. And I was a little bit tired. And I said, I'm going to skip that dinner that you don't know who this guy's name is. No, it's really important because I've been told he's a really important guy to meet. So, okay. And we met at this club, and Emmett, as you've got to know him, if you don't know him before, is a consummate professional. He's, super slick, super structured, organized. And I'm like now 2:30 my body clock, and I just need a scotch. I'm Scottish, okay. But Emmett's not drinking at this time because he's on this mission to launch this Formula One team. And he's staying laser focused on it, and he's like chatting away to me, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be tough. And it's like, okay, Emmett, cut to the chase. What is your company, and why am I here? And my boss is kicking me under the table, going, you're meant to know this stuff. So he tells me about iRise, and I'm kind of interested a little bit, and he starts telling me about this sort of, user experience. I'm sort of interested a little bit. And then it dawns on me that we have a wonderful opportunity to think about creating a partnership, because when I'm recruiting CIOs, most of them today feel confident enough to say that they have the confidence of the business, they have the ability to articulate all of those kind of key points I was talking about, but actually they're only one single person in an ecosystem that is huge. And unless you're able to translate that, up, out, and down, and cascade that leadership, process into your organization, how are you going to be singularly successful? And I saw iRise as probably a most amazing kind of piece of technology that would create their ability to articulate, both from the business to IT back up to the business, in a way that was going to create much greater assurance. From there on, we've had 5 years of a good partnership, I think. So let me just tell you a little bit about the digital board. Emmett mentioned this, kind of like odd situation that's happening. So post-Lehman, kind of organizations have been becoming very, very focused around things like risk, compliance, regulatory, kind of intervention. And therefore, the hiring of board people has mirrored that. They are coming from audit, risk, or finance backgrounds, or operational, stability backgrounds, at the very same time where technology is finally being able to deliver what it's been promising it's been able to deliver, right? We've had some previous times that it doesn't actually deliver, but now it does, right? So you've got a board going like this way in terms of its, kind of appreciation of digital, and you've got a kind of whole industry moving up that way. So they're kind of moving them past each other. And I thought, wow, that's a shame. And there's got to be an opportunity there. And then I've got all these other like CIOs or folks from Microsoft or Google or HP or SAP, these big technology firms saying to me, Bryan, how about I get like a non-exec gig? Can you get me one of those? And I say, well, no, nobody's interested in you, because those boards are looking for those kind of people. And they're going, but I think I could deliver tremendous value. And I think, yeah, you probably could, but not on your own. And if you're even one voice on that board, who cares, right? You're the guy, digital. And they're talking about risk and compliance, et cetera. So I created this idea about bringing to the market a offer which was saying to these big giants like a P&G or a Pepsi or a Coca-Cola, look, you are either in one of two places. You are already in the digital marketplace. You're creating revenue streams through this process, but you're just touching at it. Maximum you've got 4 or 5% of your revenue coming through some form of kind of e-commerce channel. And that's nothing if you compare that to a business like Amazon or whatever, which is like huge through this, and you're competing against those. Or even let's say you're not in that space, but maybe you're in the space where you just spend a ton of your money on IT. Like some of these big companies I recruit for are spending over $1 billion on big technologies, right? And as a board, they're not really equipped to ask all the right kind of questions of that executive team. How do they hold them to account? Is this actually giving us value, or are we just trying to keep up in a world that is fast moving? So anyway, I decided that enough was enough. We had to create a business called the Digital Board. So we've talked a little bit about this. The world is changing, rapid pace. Companies are under increasing pressure to deliver value, and technology is becoming a big differentiator. Yeah, but so what? So is this like another technology story? Is it news, or is it noise, okay? So what does the research say? Our research, and we've worked with Gartner and Forbes, and we've worked with the Board Institute, says that boards actually do want to play a more effective role, because they know that this is a really competitive play out there, and that they have to somehow become savvy around this. 86% of them said that IT's strategic contribution was going to be far more important in 2014 than it ever was before. And 6% of these companies currently are beginning to actually have technology being represented somewhere at the executive board level. But let me walk you through what I would do when I meet with a board in trying to sort of test the business case, test the validity. Of course, we have to ask them kind of questions, okay? So how is IT going to change the way that your industry competes? What is going to be the basis of competition, and what does IT do? And that typically is a very difficult question to A, ask somebody on the board, but B, expect them to have an answer around. But it's something we have to start the conversation with. Then we say, well, what is it going to really take to exceed your customers' expectations? I mean, all of you guys are in this space, right? You're all designing phenomenal pieces of technology that is helping digitize process, or it's creating speed of product to market, whatever it is. But how are you going to really change your customers' expectations, not just your own expectations? And how are you going to make sure you're getting value? I was out with the CIO of a very, very well-known large pharmaceutical organization, a top 5. And he was sort of proud to tell me that they were going to come under $1 billion on SAP. And I'm like, oh my God, like your business is, it's in the shitter. Like, you've got no big blockbuster products coming out. You're trying to go to biotech, you're trying to do all this, and you're happy that it's under $1 billion. And of course, I didn't quite say it like that, but it was kind of the look that I gave him, and he was sort of looking, yeah, that's kind of the way it is. And I thought, wow, if you're the board, you're kind of like, well, billion seems fine. Our revenues are, kind of 60 billion this year, or 1 billion, it's okay. And it's not okay, right? It's not okay. It's taken 5 years to get that. And actually, they have the same technology that they had through the multiple instances of this technology before, and they haven't crept into the conversation early enough at the board to talk about value. So we asked them about this. And we also asked them about how IT is going to improve operational strategic agility. We're going to say, what kind of capabilities do you think you need to deliver this kind of stuff? It's not just about expecting to be able to hire a global CIO and have him or her kind of work this through. It's got to be a culture within your organization of this kind of capability. And the very last story, the very last point is like, are you now making the most of your technology story? Are you able to compete effectively with this? And again, so what? What is stopping them? If you think about all these things that I've been talking about, what is actually stopping them doing something about it? Now, Emmett, you stole a little bit of my thunder. Like, boards are a little bit distant, both from a sort of an age perspective, an experience perspective. We call it a sort of a confidence gap. So you can see here, this is research that the average age is 62. Only 1% of Fortune 500 have a CIO on the exec team. The crowded boardroom agendas, overseeing IT is obviously a significant challenge. We all know that. Directors are time poor. There's a rapid speed of change that's going on. It's a complicated subject matter. It can seem overly complex. Actually, I had a great dinner with a CIO recently, and she said to me, we have worked out that complexity is a sign of business confusion. And it's really, wow, you just worked that out? But it's really quite, we kind of get that, right? But it's like, yes, you've got all these crazy, kind of things running your organization to make it look like you've got this sort of swan, but it's not. And of course, these boards have got a lack of technology experience. They grew up in a pre-digital age. I remember this story. They won't mind me mentioning it, but it was BP, and it was years ago, and it was the CIO at the time, a guy called John Leggett, and he was telling me a story of the 70s, and they were rolling out, dumb terminals, et cetera, and so forth. And then, of course, then the 80s came along with the client-server technology and PCs, and this very senior board guy came up and said to him, he said, like, what's going on? Why are you putting all these things on people's desks? He's like, well, it's the kind of new wage. That's what we're doing. It's like technology. He said, but it's stopping them from working. They're not working anymore. They're on those things. Like, okay. So those things are, this is what we kind of talk about the confidence gap. So what are we going to do in my firm and my messaging to create a sort of a mitigation of this type of thing? Well, we're talking about trying to offer these organizations a construct of something that I call a digital board. These are made up from different folks. I'll quickly show you this visually, and we'll go back to the previous one. So you can see that these people, first of all have day jobs. They're like us. We have proper day jobs that we're held accountable for delivery of whatever we're being asked to do. And they're the ones that have been saying, can I get a board gig, Bryan? So I'm saying to them, okay, you can get a mixture of these types of people that will run from strategy consultants to digital marketeers to technology entrepreneurs to e-commerce, internet folks, so people from Google or Yahoo, et cetera, and also a CIO, because somebody has to own the downstream impact of all of this idea generation. And we're going to help put this kind of advisory board together so you can start doing the kind of 101 dumb question sessions that you've been dying to do but have been fearing having this conversation with McKinsey or Bain or Booz or Boston, one of those types of firms that trade on fear and uncertainty. So you're going to be able to ask them things like, what is big data? And what does it really mean? And what does it mean to us? And should we be kind of engaging with these topics more? Or is this just like a fad that's going to pass? Should we go back to our risk regs, all that kind of stuff? So that board are going to hopefully, depending on what the situation, depending what the agenda is, and the request of them, they're going to be able to start with those kind of dumb questions and noodle through them and get the executive team aligned to what the board need, get the board need to align what the technology and what the exec team need to actually create progress in this space. So that's the idea. And then you're probably going like, yeah, okay, but like, so what again? Like, so what's the big deal? Right? That sounds like so interesting, and I don't see any like progress. And so I have this kind of killer question, which is like, if not now, when? Well, do you want to be Kodak? Or do you want to be Instagram? you want to be Kodak, or do you want to be Instagram? And that's my kind of thing. So we know that, this is a little bit unfair to pick on a company like Kodak. We've done a fantastic job, but they were slow to realize this speed of change in consumer behavior. And so my sort of slightly threatening kind of question to those boards is don't get lost, don't get left behind, don't be one of the, I think Jose mentioned, don't be one of those industries that die because they weren't able to adopt technology, right up to the board thinking. Okay, so what does that mean for an audience like yourself, right? You're not on boards, maybe, not so many. Maybe you're not even the CIO. Maybe you're sitting in the IT function going, yeah, but this is rhetoric, this is talk, this, we're actually doing the real jobs, okay? Well, fundamentally, no matter what position you're in, at the moment, you've got to identify with what the leadership challenges are of your organization, your function, and your own team, okay? These are really tough things, because we've heard a lot about, kind of people and process and technology, but fundamentally, it's all about people. Everything's about people, whether you're making something, whether you're selling it, whether you're consuming it, whether you're throwing it in the garbage, whatever you're doing, it's about people. And to be able to, get kind of stuff kind of going, you've got to really understand what the people agenda is. So I thought I would try and kind of get two things going. It's a little bit of an experiment, but I thought I'd try and get two things going. One, talk to you a little bit about the digital board, and then try and talk to you about what is the downstream impact to an IT function or a technology industry, okay? So what does it really mean for us? Why should we pay attention to this? And what can we do to put pressure on our CIO or our board to start getting this and start adopting this kind of cultural kind of change? So let me just tell you a little bit about what I think the last 40 years have looked like. And it's a little bit unfair and a bit unkind, but I'm a headhunter, so I get away with these kind of things. But this is what I think is the evolution, the Darwinian kind of model of the IT leader, okay? So kind of like ape-like activity, kind of very technical, very structured, very logical, very fact-based, owner, quite threatening, you need me, I will fix your problems, that kind of, kind of old school kind of leader. By the way, that old school leader still exists, right? There's still tons of them around. They don't really understand what the business is asking them, or they don't really understand the culture of which they're operating within, or they don't really know how to package the messages back up to that organization to simplify what they're doing in technology. And so on and so forth. Okay, so we look at that a little bit there. So this is the summary. They're not really seen as a business shaper. They're lacking the sort of the emotional intelligence, the sort of the ability to create appreciative inquiry, or the ability to kind of create empathy with an audience, okay? So, well, okay, so we're seeing, fewer of those examples, but we're still seeing those examples, and they are setting a tone in your organization sometimes of this is what's important in IT. It's all about, becoming functionally excellent. It's like, well, that's part of the story, right? Functional excellence is a wonderful aspiration to get to, but not in the absence of leadership, not in the absence of connecting with your customers, not in the absence of connecting with your market, your industry, and not the absence of actually creating collaboration. So when I talk to CEOs about hiring the right IT person, I just show them this kind of stuff and say, just be careful we don't end up with one of those, okay? Because it's not going to drive you forward. Stage 3 to stage 4 leader is your typical good CIO, okay? So they've grown up pretty much in the IT industry or function. They might have been in a consulting role, or they might have been in, a business-facing role, business analyst, project manager, began to do head of IT roles, shaping kind of a business agenda, creating alignment, creating that sort of business want this, IT can deliver this. But they're still a little bit less courageous than they should be. They're still a little bit reactive. They're still saying, the business want this. This is what the business are asking me. But God, they are the business. You're the business, right? You're not kind of like you wear red and they wear blue. You're in the business. You're part of that. You probably consume some of the products or services that your business provides. So you are part of that business, but they still have a slight disconnect with this idea. They still think that IT is about providing service, providing value, and it's true, but it's not the whole story. It's about shaping and influencing. It's not about always asking for permission. It's about sometimes apologizing later for starting something. And this behavior, and I interview a lot of these people, and it's quite funny because, I mean, I don't know how many interviews I've done, but sit down and hello, yeah, it's good to meet you, Bryan, I've heard about you, fantastic. And I say, it's great. And I say to them, okay, walk me through a little bit about your career, and what have you done? And because you know what, if I had a word count on CVs for the word transformation, it'd be like everywhere, transformational CIO or transformational leader. Yes, Bryan, I've transformed our organization's use of IT. And I go, okay, what have you done? Yeah, we've simplified the application landscape. We're down to like 2,000 applications. It's like, wow. Yeah, we're down to 400 data centers. Right. Yeah. By the way, we didn't even know how many data centers we had. So knowing how many data centers, that was pretty much important. Okay. 17,000 servers now. We're going to get down to 6 this year. Okay. And any of that transformation is changing the way your business is working? Any of that kind of getting your product out quicker? Yeah, no, we haven't talked about a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about that. I said, okay, well, talk to me about that. And then you hear the sort of the business now, they're asking for this, and I'm saying to them, look, okay, you know, this interview is kind of going really nicely, but it's going to come to an end where you get that kind of, I'll be in touch. My team are in touch to say, sorry, it's not this one. All right? Because they've not transformed anything, they're not really somebody that's shaping that agenda. So what do we really want? We want stage 5, stage 6 leaders. This is what you should be asking of your CIO. You should be asking them to be visionary, innovative, risk taker, to a certain extent. You want, more than anything, emotional intelligence and appreciative inquiry. So I spent 2 years out of headhunting and in a really large leadership consulting project for, I don't know, I'm not going to name the company, but it's one of the biggest companies in the world. And their CIO grabbed me and said, Bryan, we have a big problem in IT. I said, okay, what's that? He said, we're getting good at IT. I thought, oh, okay, that's the kind of problem I can see if I can help. What does that mean, you're getting good at IT? He said, we're getting good at IT. We're getting better and better at managing projects, right? So that's what the business are asking to do. They're asking us to manage projects, execute these projects, and we're getting better and better at those, right? And I spend $1.5 billion each year on new projects. So it's pretty important that we get better at managing those, right? And I'm going, yeah, that's right. So what's the problem? He said, how do we know if we're managing the right projects? It's like, good question. How do you? He said, I don't know. But how do we do something about it? And that's what I want you to figure out. I'm a headhunter. I find people that figure that out. I don't figure that stuff out. He said, you do. Because trapped in that little head of yours is thousands of interviews. Thousands of like good, bad, and different. So I want you to kind of extract all of that stuff that's in your head and get a leadership program. We have 260 emerging IT leaders in this business. 260? He said, yeah. They start, there's some of them are, you know, senior business analysts that we think have got potential, and some of them are running, I don't know, $500 million of IT spend at the moment, and I want you to touch them all. Get into their heads and help them think about this thing. So it dawned on me what this thing was. It was appreciative inquiry. It was the ability to have a conversation with your business stakeholder, with your colleague, with a market, with analysts, with whoever, and said, what is it we're really trying to do? Why do we think it's this? Now, without alienating myself from an audience, technology people are a little bit solution-oriented, right? You like to fix problems. You like to deliver. You like to deliver well. But your ability to ask some of the kind of difficult questions that might kind of alienate you from that audience a little bit, not the strongest skill set, right? Not the ability to really kind of resonate, but what is the long-term implication to the conversation that we're having at the moment? So I went out, I met with Harvard, I met with MIT, I met with Kellogg, I met with Oxford, Cambridge, Cranfield. I met with all of these, and everything was about leadership. And I still hadn't cracked this appreciative inquiry. And then I landed up in Ohio, because somebody said, have you heard of this guy called Richard Boyatzis or Daniel Goleman? It's like, no, I should? Yep. They're the leading authors on emotional intelligence and appreciative inquiry. And when you can get your head around what this kind of thing is, and when you can get this very large kind of organization around what this thing is, you're going to see a huge difference. It's like, okay, it's a field trip to Ohio. So I took them out, and we flew in, and we met with these guys, and we were blown away. And we were so blown away that we flew them and all of their faculty over to London and met with this large company. And they got going, and they got going. And these people, who are very senior people in this organization, had never touched this subject, had never really understood that this was really important to be able to understand the human connection with what they were doing. They understand the logical, fact base. They understood the kind of the request, but they didn't really understand what was the basis of the request. And it changed the way that that organization engaged with their stakeholders. And what we would do is we would test, so this was a 2-year consulting exercise that I talked about. We would test that through the validity, through their performance contract at the end of the year. We would interview their business colleagues and said, has the conversation significantly changed away from point to solution, this is what you need, to let's build trust, let's build credibility, let's get to know you, let's understand your drivers, your constraints, let's understand you as a person, your family, your children, how you think, why you think that way, what's going on in your world, are you happy in your job, is your relationship going well, what can I do to improve that? Those kind of conversations were going like that, and less about things about, hey, so would it help if we got down to 6,000 applications or whatever? And that started to create a breakthrough in the relationship between that business and that IT function. Okay, so what does this mean, and what do I need to do to actually see whether or not this is just news or noise? Okay, so I have to develop a diagnostic process that supports the search for evidence. Okay, so a headhunter is quite an interesting job. You have a wonderful kind of vantage point on the world. People want to get to know you, and you want to get to know people, and they share their stories, etc. And people are highly likable, right? I don't know if you've seen the Harvard kind of likability quadrant. Okay, highly likable, competent people get jobs, big jobs. Yeah. The next kind of bracket are the highly likable, not as competent, but it takes longer to find that out. The top left bracket is the not so likable, damn competent, God, I've got to suffer this guy because he knows what he's doing. And the bottom left-hand box is the totally incompetent, totally unlikable, oh my God, let's get this guy out. Whatever it is, right? So as a headhunter, I'm trying to kind of make sure that I just don't like someone. I try and really kind of understand what is the basis of evidence. So I created this diagnostic process. There are very many different kind of ways of looking at leadership assessment, but I decided that there should be sort of 12 absolute critical competencies that break into sort of that leading, thinking being. So you can see them on the screen: the ability to vision and communicate, the ability to make decisions, the ability to innovate, take people with them, shape business outcomes. This emotional intelligence and appreciative inquiry, it sits down there. Things that will resonate very well, I'm sure, with this audience: the ability to break down complexity. This one here, this is a tough one. Comfortable with ambiguity. Hands up. Hands up if you would admit to being comfortable with ambiguity. It's more than I thought. We're not, right? As humans, we're not. And boy, as technology people, we're not. Because we don't want ambiguity. We need assurance. We need certainty. We need to deliver things against what we're being asked to do. But if you get up the scale on emotional intelligence, boy, your ability to be comfortable with ambiguity really changes. Okay. So great. These are like kind of, posters of things. But how do we really test it? Well, we have to ask difficult, awkward questions. Is Dimple in the room tonight? I was talking to Dimple. Hi, Dimple. We sat beside each other at dinner last night, and I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We had some fun, but I'm sorry. So I know Dimple's boss, I know Dimple's boss's boss, and I know Dimple's boss's boss's boss. And I know this organization, I know the challenge that they're having, driving an enormous change agenda. And we talked a little bit about that. But we talked about these types of things. And so my job is to ask really tough questions. That is able to look for evidence. And you won't be able to read this so easily on the screen, but these are essentially a set of behavioral anchors. These are things that I need to hear in a conversation that allows me to determine whether I strongly agree that they have the ability to challenge conventional thinking by coming up with new and innovative, different kind of perspectives, or whether I strongly disagree. I just didn't hear anything in the conversation that really pointed me to say, this person can do this, okay? So we have these, and I haven't necessarily put them all on the screen, but you can see through them. These are things like, so if we talked a little bit about the emotional intelligence, it has a sensitivity to others, understands implicitly how to work with, manage, and motivate a diverse group of individuals. Understands their cultural references, where they came from, why they think the way they think, why they come up with the decision that that's the right way of doing it. Now, I'll share a little story. So I'm 43 years old, and I have been married, and I'm no longer married. And in the process of no longer becoming married, we went through marriage guidance counseling, which I was a big fan of, actually, because I like feedback. And anyway, at the end of this, you can give me as much feedback as you like. And God, I learned quite a lot about myself in this process. Yeah? Really? That's how I come across? I don't listen to you? No? Okay. I'm sorry. Oh, I don't ask you enough kind of like, how are you feeling kind of questions? No. Okay. So anyway, and by the way, the counselor did the same on her, which was fantastic. And I yes. I think she likes me more. Yeah. Which was my number one objective at the end of this, to go, yeah, I'm the better guy, huh? Anyway. Sorry, I'm digressing. The thing that I learned in this is that we are preconditioned to think how we think based on the things that came into our nurture very early on. And the thing that the marriage counselor said to me at the time, she said, Bryan, even when you grow up in the same village, with the same education system, the same level of wealth or prosperity, or whatever that is, you can be wholly different. Okay, give you an example. And we talked about, she said, you're both Christian, that's right, so you both celebrate Christmas. I said, you imagine a couple getting together, and they think they've got all the kind of things, the trappings of, alignment around values and, how they should share their life together. And so what happens is Christmas comes along. And one person in that relationship has grown up with Christmas as like this big celebration. It's like Christmas is coming, the decorations go up on the 1st of December, bit American, big celebrations, presents, lots of talk about it. And the other one is all about keeping it very simple, very quiet, very discreet. Maybe not big on presents, but lots of love, lots of all this kind of stuff. And of course, Christmas comes, and all this sort of conversations start going about, so are we inviting the Joneses, are we doing this? And this other person like, whoa, what are you talking about? He said, well, it's Christmas. I said, yeah, that's not what happens at Christmas. Yeah, it is. This is what happens. This is what we do. He said, no, you're wrong. And I, well, how can I be wrong because it's Christmas? He said, yeah, that's what I was thinking. How can you be wrong because it's Christmas? So you have something that's universally understood, maybe not always celebrated, but understood, and you have completely different perspectives on that event, which you think there is no different perspective, right? That's what happens at Christmas, because that's what's wired into you culturally, through your values, through your nurture, through all that kind of stuff. And so it's not surprising that people, even when they think they've got phenomenal alignment around certain things, that they can bump into a topic. And unless they know how to really engage with that other person and ask them, hey, what is your perspective of Christmas? And they go, oh, that's such a great question. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how Christmas was in our house. Oh, yeah, I'd love to learn about that. Tell me more about that. And they start sharing. I said, that's really amazing, because it was completely different in our house. We did this whoa, kind of stuff. And then they say, what is our joined up view of Christmas, given that we come from different perspectives? Wow, that's a great thing. Well, I would really like to weave in some of the things that are important to me. Yep, I value that. Positive affirmation. Would you be equally as happy to weave in some of the things that I like? Okay, I'm a man. No, you're not going to agree with any of those. No, I'm kidding. is yes, we're creating a contract, right? We're creating an agreement based on the process of learning what our cultural references are in something, what our nurtured experience of a situation. So if you're in a situation with a business, you're not rushing to the assumption that this is what they want, right? Trying to track it back to that appreciative inquiry. It's about, tell me what your kind of view of this is. Let me learn what your ambition and motivation and want, how does this tie into things that are important to you as a leader? What are the things that you get measured on that are important to you? And how does this sit with your values? What could I be doing and what could my team be doing to align to those types of things? And they go, wow, that's a different kind of conversation. And you say, okay, so if I think we can do most of that, can I share with you what's important to us as an IT function? My team, et cetera? Yeah. We've created that kind of that license to engage on that basis. Okay. And they start weaving those. So we can create a contract around that. We can try and create this together. Yes. That, I mean, I hope maybe that does exist, right? But my sense is that's not an instinct within the relationship between IT folks and the business. So anyway, at the end of all of this comes a beautiful scorecard, which is stuffed full of strongly agree, of course, because all my candidates are wonderful. Some of them not. And we present this to the client. But what we try to do in this process is we try and educate the customer to what is reasonable in all of this. You know, what gray shaded box should they really be asking for? They don't need visionary leadership at every point of the journey, right? They just need sometimes strong enough vision and the ability to execute against that. And then we do a map to the candidates, and then we present them back. And we say, this is kind of what you were looking for. Okay, so what does this mean for you? Can everybody stand up again? Up, 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 up. Okay, now, stay standing if you think you should be able to say that IT is operationally stable. Stay standing if you think you should be able to say that. Yes, I was hoping that. You think you'll be able to say that IT are managing the same projects, the right projects for the company. Yes, you should be staying standing right now. You think that IT should be considered reputationally as a business that is well managed, that's got good governance, and is financially well managed. Yep, stay standing. Okay. You believe that your customers would say it gives us differentiation. It gives us things that we're able to do ahead of our competitors. Stay standing if you think they should be able to say that. Stay standing if you think you should be able to shape your industry through some of this breakthrough, innovative technology stuff that's going through. You should be the leader in this and say, we were the first to do this. Yep. And stay standing if you think your board should understand how important that is. You have been a wonderful audience. Thank you very much.